Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Christy Kennedy. I'm the Director of Alum Leadership and Career Engagement here at Smith. I am also a Smith alum, class of 2010, and I lived in Albright House when I was a student. I saw a fellow Albrighter on the call. Um, I lead the Alum Career Program. So that is the program that is hosting us today. It's really geared towards supporting Smith alums at any stage of their career. So whether you're starting out, considering a transition of some kind, or if you're kind of sunsetting and thinking about your next move, we have resources and programming that's aligned with all of those kind of life stages. We want you to understand that the Smith College network of alums is a really powerful resource for you all. And so these sessions are also geared to help you stay connected to Smith and connect with other Smithies. We have workshops, webinars. We also have live events that happen year round. And if you keep an eye on our website, the Alum Career Program page, which Lindsay is going to pop in the chat, you can find other sessions that you can join in the future. So today we are here to talk about leadership and how to level up your leadership skills, whether you're supervising a team or not, which I think is an awesome discussion for us to have today. Because leadership isn't limited to job titles or managing others. It's really a mindset and it's a skill set that you can begin developing at any stage of your career. So today with Ann, we're going to have this interactive virtual workshop and she will guide us through 4 focus chapters, each of these offering practical, low-risk strategies to help you grow as a leader, whether you work remotely, feel stretched for time, or like I said, you don't have any direct reports. Our goal is that you leave with concrete actions to strengthen your confidence, increase your visibility, and feel more energized about your current role and future path. So we're really fortunate to have Ann with us today, and I'll share a little bit about Ann's background with you. Ann Drummie, class of 90, a dual Canada and US citizen whose career spans engineering, nonprofit, construction project management, and leadership coaching for technical professionals. She has worked as an individual contributor, people leader, and is now a solopreneur across public and private sectors. Today, she helps high-performing professionals use coaching as a catalyst for meaningful growth. She holds multiple coaching certifications in the US and Canada and is the author of Wallet on the Rental Car Roof, a guide for young professionals growing their leadership skills. With that, thank you, Ann, for being here today, and we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I am going to share slides. All right, I am really excited to spend time with you today. Here are 3 things that you will walk away with. The 4 hats of a leader, the 4 kinds of thinking, and some scripts and small experiments. So like Christy just said, by the end, you'll have practical items and ideas to implement immediately. But before we get to that, I'd like to let you know a little bit more about me. So if what I say in describing myself describes you as well, I would love it if you would give me a quick hands up or a thumbs up, either on camera or with a reaction button, and then we'll see how much we have in common. I'm going to start with the fact that I was a licensed engineer. So any chance that there are other engineers on the call? Maybe not. I was also a certified project manager. Any other project managers on the call? Christy, I can only see a handful of boxes. Can you see more?
Yeah, it looks like there's 2 folks giving the thumbs up. So maybe 2 project managers on the call?
Awesome. Okay. All right. I started my career as an individual contributor well before that term was ever even used. I focused on analyses and deliverables and to-do lists. So any other current or former individual contributors? I see Courtney's hand. I see thumbs up. Okay, we're getting some commonality here. I was also a manager of a small local team that initially was so small we could meet in a cubicle. So any other managers of small teams? Okay. I was also eventually a manager of a large decentralized team where I had to figure out how to meet virtually before the pandemic taught all of us how to do this. Any other managers of larger teams? Okay. I went to Smith in the late 1980s when we played vinyl records on WOZQ on the third floor of the Davis Student Center. Any other late 80s Smithies with me? Or current owners of vinyl records? Yes. Okay. And I have completely lost track of how many hours I have spent watching Olympic curling in the last 10 days. Any other massive curling fans? I see smiles. If you have curling questions, you can hold those and ask them at the end. Okay? Another thing about me is that I see a future where everyone has a great boss, is a great boss, and has great teams. And I hope that you can see that future too. And I'm here to deepen your belief that leadership is for everyone. So to get started, I'm going to ask that you get something nearby for you to take some notes. I'm going to ask you to write down 3 things: an emotion that you're feeling right now, a second emotion that you're feeling right now, and something that you hope to get from this session. It is allowed and is frankly normal that the 2 emotions aren't necessarily the same. They may even contradict each other seemingly. You can be happy and skeptical at the same time. You can be tired and curious. You can be distracted and keen. That is all fine. So if you can take a moment to write down 2 emotions and something that you're hoping to get from the session, have that for yourself, and I encourage you to share that in the chat. All right, we're getting some coming in. We have inspired and hopeful, excited and hopeful, jaded and motivated, optimistic and confused, disheartened and motivated. We have some themes. Stressed and energized. I feel like you're taking these dualities very seriously now. Apathetic and empathetic. Okay, tired and hopeful. And things we're looking for are new perspectives, ways to manage up, looking for inspiration, looking for more skills, looking for new perspective, tactics, strategies, inspiration. You're still coming in. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Having looked at what's in the chat and having simply done the exercise, some of you may already notice that your emotions are changing. You may actually feel a little more energized, or you may feel a little more uncomfortable. And discomfort is actually a good sign. It means that you are nudging up against the edge of your comfort zone, and that's where growth happens. If you play it safe in life, you've decided that you don't want to grow anymore. If you play it safe in life, you've decided that you don't want to grow anymore. I think, though, your choice to attend this session shows that you do want to grow. So let's note a couple more things down. I'd like you to think of leaders you admire, people you've worked with or observed, and write down 2 to 5 things that they do. Really focus on the verbs. I'll give you a few moments to write those in your notes, and then I encourage you to add some of them to the chat. So as you think of leaders you admire, what are some of the things that they do? Really focusing on the verbs. Keep them coming. We have listen, synthesize, decide, respect, dream, empower, motivate, communicate, advocate, inspire, support, speak, listen. As those keep coming in, I'll share some that I hear often from clients, that admirable leaders listen. That's always the number one, and it was the first one in our chat. They make everyone feel heard. They encourage collaboration. They actively seek a range of perspectives. They ensure that they themselves are visible and accountable. And many of those are already in our chat, along with acting boldly, defending, advocating, encouraging. Okay. Well, thanks for doing that. This session is about growing your leadership skills, like the ones you just listed, even if no one reports to you. You've probably heard this before. A title makes you a manager, influence makes you a leader. And there are so many scenarios where these skills can apply. Perhaps it's with vendors needing to collaborate, with a board needing to make critical decisions, with peers who are embarking on a side project. In each of those scenarios, you could be the one to bring leadership skills regardless of your actual title. So what I want to offer first is a framework of the leader's 4 hats. So I'll go through the 4. We have the technical hat. You have this on when you roll up your sleeves and do technical work, when you train other people, and when you check quality. You put the strengths hat on for spotting what each individual uniquely brings, and when you are thoughtfully combining their talents. You put the motivation hat on when you're being intentional in connecting with others and providing tailored recognition. And you put the vision hat on when you are setting goals and aligning with strategy and painting the future. It can sometimes feel like you are wearing all 4 hats at once. That is uncomfortable, and why support is so important. I offer the metaphor of thinking of a rowing team. You could be in the boat rowing. You could be assigning seats and naming a captain. You could be reminding everyone, including yourself, why you're showing up on the water every morning. You could be setting the goal that you are training for the Olympics and that the next step is an upcoming regatta. You might start solely rowing in the boat, but as you take on more actions, you may be less and less in the boat and putting that technical hat down more often. Another example comes from my days of visiting construction sites for a weekly meeting. I remember so many times when the architect and the engineer and the builder were debating some very specific detail, like an anchor bolt. I probably learned something at school about anchor bolts, but I had to quickly acknowledge that my role didn't need me to dust off old resources. My role was to enable the experts we already had to do their best work. My role was to set the tone, ask clarifying questions, keep the discussion moving, resolve conflicts. And it worked. Documents proceeded smoothly. I learned that I didn't need technical expertise to lead. Sometimes leadership is about creating an environment for others to succeed. All right, now we're going to find out if you all like my favorite TV show. My favorite pop culture example of the four hats is Ted Lasso. He was hired to coach an English soccer team when his expertise was in American football. He was expected to fail, but he thrived. Not because of technical expertise, but because he was strong with the other three hats. For strengths, he saw who had foresight, who could rally teammates, who was creative. For motivation, he hung the believe sign and he gave very personalized gifts. And for vision, he set an ambitious goal at the start of each season and adapted the actual path to get there along the way. Even though the owner, who set him up to fail, she eventually realized that she had underestimated what real leadership looks like. So we've covered the four hats. What I'd like to do is move to a quick poll, Lindsay, where we have 3 questions. Which of these hats do you wear the most often? Which feels the most comfortable? And which would you like to strengthen? So as these come up, I also want to remind you that it's your experience, your background, your exposure, and your current job responsibilities mostly that will influence which hat you wear the most often. Perhaps even more than your own desires of what hat to wear. But noticing what you wear the most often can help you to think ahead about which hat you want to expand your skills under next. Question 1, which hat do you feel you wear the most often? 2 is which hat feels the most comfortable? And which hat would be most helpful today if it were stronger? Okay. Collectively, the hat we wear the most often is the technical hat. That the hat that feels most comfortable is a tie between technical or motivation. And each hat, if I could get stronger at it, would be helpful, but the vision hat in particular, if that were stronger, would be most helpful. I am curious what all of you are noticing in these results. What are you noticing in the results? Feel free to put it in the chat or even come off mute. Is anybody surprised?
I see someone saying, and we are doers, which is something that also struck me. This being a group of Smithies. Um,
We're all in the boat. We like to row the boat.
And here Sarah is saying it's easy to stay micro and play whack-a-mole with tasks, but harder to go macro and focus on the larger but not urgent picture.
Mm, I
That
like the
really
comment.
resonates. Yeah, that resonates a lot, Sarah. Just too much to do, no time to think.
Yeah. And the phrase workhorses. There's also a very strong external element that as we go through school, school is teaching us to deliver, to uh, create and hand in. And we're rewarded for all of that um, output and product. All of the rowing of the boat is what was rewarded. And entry level positions and first initial promotions are often around what can you technically do? Uh, and so we build up that hat first pretty often. Along the way, we have to get more comfortable with the other hats. Other things that we noticed, I'm wondering if you felt that it was the same hat that felt comfortable as the hat that you wear the most often. Is it comfortable because you wear it the most often? Or for those of you where the comfortable hat isn't the one you wear the most often, how does that feel that you don't get to wear it um, as the majority of the time?
And I'm seeing Marissa's comment. It's easy to stay in get it done task mode, but that's not necessarily the most effective way to lead.
The term effective way is fairly subjective. Part of the framework of having the four hats is implying the greater facility you have with all four hats, the more choices you have as a leader of, oh, in this scenario, perhaps wearing the technical hat will guide the conversation this way, or perhaps this needs the visionary hat. Uh, that if you are in, as Marissa says, get it done task mode, uh, you're limiting how often you're picking up the other hats.
Hmm.
My role has changed, and so I don't get to be a doer technical as much. Yeah. So if you are suddenly changing roles and you're asked to put on a different one of these hats, and it's not comfortable because you haven't worn it much, uh, could have that longing of, oh gosh, life felt different when I had a hat on that was more comfortable. Yeah, we get a lot of training on technical. It is so much easier to train technical than it is any of the other three hats, which is why Ted Lasso was able to do what he did. He's like, I'll just surround myself with people who know the technical, and I'll read a few books and I'll learn along the way.
And one of the things that really is striking me about Sarah's comment too, and this is something I was thinking about, is often, at least in the fields that I've been in, which have been primarily nonprofit and higher education, individual contributors who are good at their job are the ones who become promoted to be managers of people.
Mm-hmm.
And to Sarah's point, at that point, you have a lot of training in how to do, but you don't generally, especially in these fields where you have fewer resources, you won't have that kind of dedicated management or leadership training. So I've always personally, as someone who feels more comfortable with the technical, these other areas feel harder for me because there's so much less
Yeah.
content, like Sarah is saying. So,
Yep. What a thread I'm also picking up is this awareness that uh, as a career progresses, the ratio of time that you would be wearing these hats changes. And stereotypically, you would start a career path wearing the technical hat most of the time. And perhaps later you would have that vision hat on a little more often, and perhaps the technical hat on not at all. And that ratio will change. And part of my message is you can get ahead of that change by thinking about these hats, strengthening them before you get in a role where you need to wear them with a different ratio of time. All right, thanks for playing with the poll. I am going to share another story to introduce the next framework. I was facilitating a campus planning session with one of my university clients, and I had spent weeks planning this. I had crisp maps of campus printed out. I had soccer fields and tennis courts cut out in color, laminated. I had it all under control. We had just started the exercise when my client turned to me and said, I need a football practice field. And my stomach fell. I didn't have one of those. My first thought was failure, but I didn't panic. Somehow I stayed present. I took my note paper and I ripped a piece to about the right size, hand wrote football practice field on it, and handed it to him. And he happily took it. Soon the whole group was tearing paper into all kinds of things that I never would have anticipated. They made pavilions. They even made horseshoe pits. They did not make curling rinks. But my first instinct was to deem it a mistake, but it had actually made the workshop better. I'd learned that leadership isn't about being perfect or anticipating every detail, but to create the space for possibility. That story was my crash course on different kinds of thinking. So here are the 4 kinds of thinking. Engineering thinking is about solving for the right answer among lots of wrong answers. We want the bridge to stand up. Business thinking is about optimizing and navigating trade-offs. We want the business to run in the black. Research thinking is about analyzing and testing hypotheses. We want to discover what wasn't known before. And design thinking is for things that have no right or wrong answers, where anything is possible. It allows exploring, playing, creating. We want to grow and shape something new, which can include ourselves. So the 4 kinds of thinking are looking for different things, looking for what's right, or what's optimal, or what's true, or what's possible. So as I say, I was a trained engineer, and no surprise, my default is to engineering thinking. I tried to use it for basically everything, including trying to hold a foolproof campus planning session. But in that moment, when I tore the paper, I had to switch from engineering thinking to design thinking and let go of the goal to be perfect. And it made for a great experience. We have a second poll about these 4 kinds of thinking. So ponder this for a little bit. What we're curious about is which one of these might be your default, and which one of these would you want to use more often? All right, let's take a look. We have a bit of a range. that our defaults are engineering, business, research, a little bit of design. And which type of thinking would you want to use more of? Engineering is pretty low, so is research. Business thinking and design thinking is clearly the most popular. I'm curious, what are you guys noticing in the poll?
Um, so I was going to type this, but it was taking me too long. So I was noticing that when I first went to answer the second question of which thinking would you want to use more often, I was thinking to myself, oh, I should choose the business thinking because I'm trying to get a team to work together efficiently and effectively to get the work done. And then I was like, no, she said at the beginning, don't do the things that are comfortable. Like that's the answer that I should be giving, but the answer that I really want to give is the design thinking. Because if I can have that design capability, then I will also be thinking about the business thinking and the optimization and all of those pieces as well. So it was kind of trying to push me to not be comfortable, to like choose the uncomfortable answer.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I am realizing that there is a bit of meta happening that I'm asking you essentially to use your default thinking to say what you would like more of.
And
Others are welcome to come off mute. Yeah, Christy, what's going on in
I'm
the chat?
I'm wondering if you might just share from your point of view the differentiation between the engineering thinking and design thinking, like what really sets them apart from one another, because they seem the most related to each other, maybe, but
Mhm.
um, just that's kind of coming up in the chat. Is it a lack of one definitive answer to the problem for design thinking? Is it about vision with design thinking? Can you just speak a little bit more and maybe to each of these, just
Mhm. Yeah. Engineering thinking versus design thinking. Engineering thinking, there is a right answer if you just crunch the numbers, run the um, formulas. There is an answer that will keep the bridge standing up or an answer for the bridge to fall down. Design thinking, there's no wrong answer. All answers are right. It's the blank piece of paper that you can just start drawing on. It's art uh, that has um, that has a different meaning to each person that interacts with it. It's knowing that um, planning a trip to location A or location B, uh, they're both probably going to be amazing. So it's starting to imagine what is pulling my attention that could be interesting to shape about going to A or interesting to shape to go to B. Business thinking acknowledges there won't be one specifically right answer. I'm balancing how much I charge for something versus how much I pay to make it versus how many I make and who I'm selling it to and what they're willing to pay. And if I can uh, manage and offset each of those, is it important to me to have high revenue? Is it important to me to have market share? Is it important to me to have a strong ROI by year three? What is the most important criteria? And then I can optimize all the other variables for that. So there are multiple ways to make a business plan stay in the black. So the thinking is around how am I arranging all of these variables. Research thinking is often around the what ifs and around risk mitigation and mapping things through to see results and then starting over and mapping things through to see results. I'm curious if anyone sees a connection to their major that they had at Smith that may impact or maybe tied to the type of thinking that they chose. I think I've seen in the chat that there's probably a relation to how you're measured at work right now with respect to the type of thinking that you use the most. Yep, 3 research degrees. Okay. Marissa wrote that engineering feels reactive and design thinking feels proactive. Yeah, I can sense that as well. Engineering thinking is, I want to be sure I get this right. So there's sort of a caution and double checking, whereas design thinking is, oh, I want to see what is possible. And it's much more wide open. Yeah, we have economics majors, theater majors. I also want to share that, like the 4 hats, there's probably someone nearby who is comfortable with the hat that you want to grow or with the type of thinking that you want to use most often. And similarly, the hat that is comfortable for you and the type of thinking that you use the most often may be the thing that someone else around you is trying to strengthen. So to just remind you that we're not all the same. There is someone in our midst who has design thinking as their usual default. And if you can find people like that, they can help you expand your design thinking. And similarly, if you are strong in research thinking and someone else wants to strengthen that, be available, partner up. I'm seeing more in the chat this sort of correlation of whether you picked the major at Smith because that was already your type of thinking, or if in picking that major you've honed that kind of thinking that you default to it most often. Engineering thinking has really helped me most of the time. But if I start feeling uncomfortable or frustrated, I try to remind myself perhaps this isn't going to be solved with engineering thinking. Maybe I need to try something different. And certainly running a team, they didn't appreciate engineering thinking. They wanted design thinking.
So, Anne, would you say that that's, I don't know that we're supposed to rank them in order of like best to worst, but which of these within the context of leadership, I'm leading you to the, would you recommend kind of what do you see as the potential pitfalls of some of these others that we'd want to avoid in leading teams or not
Similar,
leading teams?
similar to the hats, it's the awareness that we have a default and an awareness that the more adept we can be with other choices, the other 3 that aren't our default, the stronger that awareness, the more likely we'll be able to sort of match a hat or a type of thinking or the situation rather than essentially requiring the situation to adapt to you. So if I continued to lead my team entirely with the technical hat or entirely with the engineering kind of thinking, then my team would start to respond and only interact with me that way, and we would miss all kinds of opportunities around team dynamics and motivation and setting goals and how we tie the strategic plan and stuff like that. So
That,
they're all helpful.
mm,
And if you can strengthen one, then you're already moving forward.
great.
So I will say that design thinking itself is very valuable for leadership, especially for building relationships. It's the one that is the most open to relationship building. If you use engineering thinking to ask someone for a coffee chat, you'll be obsessing over deciding who is the right person to ask. If you use business thinking, you'll go around in circles about what you're going to say. And if you use research thinking, you'll focus on which method to use to make the ask. And in all three cases, you may never make the ask and never have a coffee chat, which was the case for me for a really long time, because I always felt like, is this the right person for me to go through this process of trying to ask for a coffee chat? But with design thinking, you just allow yourself to simply wonder what might be possible. What could happen if I ask this person for a coffee chat? What could happen if I get to know them? What could happen if we just talk for 10 minutes, even if I never see them again? So what I would like to offer is a script, especially for the younger version of me who had no idea how to ask for a coffee chat. It goes like this. I am currently curious about blank and would appreciate your perspective. I am currently curious about blank and would appreciate your perspective. The word currently gives you permission to change your mind later. You don't have to be curious about this for the rest of your life. It could just be for today. The word curious itself shows that you are a seeker and a learner. And the phrase your perspective shows that you value diversity of thought. So you're actually expressing a lot in just a handful of words. Now, the blank needs to be something that can't be found in a book or in a YouTube video. And it can't just be a broad category of things. So I do have some examples. You could be currently curious about leading in a hybrid work environment. You could be currently curious about AI's impact on entry-level positions. You could be curious about the role of office retrofits in advancing affordable housing. That might just be me who's curious about that. You could be curious about how the accusation of cheating in curling at the Olympics will have an impact on the future of the sport. Overall, we're asking you to not wait for the perfect person or for the perfect method. It's not about, should I send an email? Should I send a Slack? Should I call them? Like, just pick a method. It's get past all of that and just ask. And with each ask, it will get easier. What I'm asking is that you let yourself put the other kinds of thinking aside for a moment when you're thinking about a coffee chat, and just enjoy some time in the design thinking, in the I wonder what will happen. I wonder what is possible. So let's help each other out and put some more coffee chat ideas in our chat. What else could go in this blank And a bonus could be that you find someone else right here who is excited to talk about the same thing. So, what are you currently curious about that you would appreciate someone else's perspective?
And while folks are putting things in the chat, I just wanted to ask, so coffee chats, can you talk a little bit about the general value of those when you're thinking about leadership and being perceived as a leader or being seen as a leader in the workplace?
Well, I'll double down on some of the things I said before, that it shows you're a seeker, that you're a learner, that you value diversity of thought, that you see value, that you have a perspective to offer. You're entering these saying, I would appreciate your perspective, but you are prepared to give your own. So even as a new person to a particular company, you have a perspective of the new person, the fresh eyes. If you are of a certain generation, then you bring that filter. So there's always something, some way that you see the world that will be different from the other person, and that's as valuable as the person that you've reached out to. The muscle of being able to talk with a stranger and find something that uh, fascinates you, to find something that uh, is interesting, even if you can't connect all of the dots, is a valuable skill to have. The coffee chat, you may never see this person again. This can truly be like asking a stranger on the street for directions, and they are super excited to give you directions, and then you never see them again, but you have benefited from a little bit of a nudge in a certain direction.
Awesome. That's great. There's a lot happening in the chat while you were just sharing that too.
Okay, what are we all currently curious about? Navigating leadership in high pressure environments while prioritizing your learning and development and goals. Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer there. Navigating resistance to change. A lot of navigating. Currently curious about navigating and managing big personalities on a small team. I'll say right now, I would say yes to all of these. So I expect we're all going to have a lot of coffee. Currently curious about how to network for a new job without setting off alarms at the current job in context of a smallish professional world. Sarah, perhaps this is a way for you to network that seems non-threatening, that you are expanding your visibility in an industry or on a topic, that you're not reaching out to particular individuals because they have job openings. You're reaching out to them and perhaps even bringing back to others new insights that you had. Currently curious about taking over an established business. I would appreciate your perspective. Currently curious about creating a new bot for profit. Or perhaps that's a new not for profit, but I like the bot for profit as well. Currently curious about how to support people to be their best selves. Yeah. In other words, I'm currently curious about how to wear the motivation hat more often. Okay. Oh, I just got goosebumps. All right. Asking for a coffee chat is an example of simply trying something. Uh, Trying something is key for growing leadership skills. It's not by listening to the perfect podcast or reading the perfect book. Leadership isn't knowledge, it's ability. And ability comes from trying. You can read about cycling, but you have to actually get on the bicycle to have the ability. And I get that the idea of trying something, even asking someone for coffee, feels scary. You could make a mistake. You could embarrass yourself. You could look foolish. You could wonder if it's even worth it. But to not try something makes you progressively more invisible and more easily overlooked. So the key is to find something that's just on the edge of your comfort zone, not too far, but also not too easy. Now, what I have to offer is an experiment loop for small experiments. And it starts with trying something for a limited period of time, like 1 week even, or 2 weeks. It can be private that only you know about, or you could do it with a partner, or it could be even broader. As you do the experiment, you observe what happens. As you gather all of those observations, you eventually reflect on them for patterns. And then at the end of the period, you consider repeating, adapting, or starting something different. So here are some examples. For a week, you could spot whenever someone, yourself, a boss, a colleague around you uses engineering thinking or when they use business thinking. You could challenge yourself to put the motivation hat on for at least 5 minutes a day with intention, knowing that you're putting that hat on. You could ask a different person each day for a coffee chat. It might just be the ask once a day, and maybe the coffee chats themselves are happening later. You could jot down your emotions before and after meetings, a bit like we started our meeting today. So I challenge you to pick something, even pick it right now. You can write it down. It might be one of these, it might be something else that's bubbling up. Once you pick something, you're then going to set a duration. Maybe it is a week, maybe it's 2 weeks. You're going to decide how you're going to log your observations. Maybe it's the notes app on your phone. Maybe you do usually carry a journal. Maybe it's post-it notes. At the end of the experiment, when you reflect on the patterns, I also want you to ask yourself, what part of this experiment was easy, what was hard, and what surprised me? And then you choose if you want to repeat it, adapt it, or start a new one. We have most of the rest of our time together to work on this. Let's see what small experiments come to mind for you. I'm also going to put out there that if there is a leadership skill that you want an experiment for, we can co-create one together right now. So happy to do that in the chat, happy to do that unmuted. But the question is, what are some other small experiments that come to mind? And if there is a leadership skill that you want an experiment for, I'm right here, ready to make one for you.
And I have one that comes to mind, and
Oh,
maybe
okay.
will inspire other people to jump in after we kind of grease the skids a little bit. So one of the things that I have struggled with in leadership, is that I'm a verbal ideator And when you're in a position of kind of hierarchical leadership, that sometimes can be something that people take as direction, right? So they hear you talking about how we could approach something, and then they think they have to take up your idea and implement it. And what I'm really intending to encourage is brainstorming and kind of group ideation. Um, and it doesn't always land. So I'm
Mhm.
curious if you could help me think of a like mini experiment that I could do over the next week to try and change that dynamic. Like what would you recommend? Just so it can come off, I'd like to um feel like I'm doing more active listening in those spaces and really figuring out ways to engage my team and colleagues in those kinds of generative conversations.
Because it is around how you're engaging with others, it may be an experiment that you have to tell other people about, as
Mm.
opposed to it being your own secret that you're working on. Uh, what comes to mind is sharing the four hats so you can have a different but common vocabulary. So as you're in a moment of ideation and you in the past have uh, used the terms brainstorming, we're uh, playing, we're blue skying, you have a new term to say, I'm currently wearing my vision hat, not the hat that gives direction.
Mm.
Then other people can say, oh, I can put my vision hat on so that we're match and I don't have to um, try to find instruction from her. I don't have to uh, play devil's advocate with her. We're in a play space. Uh, and then be clear when you take the hat off and put a different hat on, then they might have a different reaction to you.
Mm.
As far as active listening, if you are one who knows about themselves that uh, silence is uncomfortable, then coming up with the I'm going to breathe three times, I'm going to truly count to 10, I'm going to think about my shoulders and just spend a moment to relax my shoulders. And in that moment, I'm doing something to fill the silence, but I'm still allowing the silence to be there. That will start progressively to help you tune the listening, but at least it's staying open to the silence.
Mm.
So, part of your question was around active listening. That is something an experiment you could do for a week or two. Is hey, in moments when I sense I'm getting ready to jump in or react, let me count to 5, breathe 3 times, think about my shoulders, any of those three, uh, and see how it goes. See if it's easy, see if it's hard, see if you forget most of the time.
Mm.
Oh, that's what Etta put in. Focus on listening rather than doing. For listening, um, another thing is to have a different first response. Uh, One that I like is simply tell me more. That continues a little bit of space before getting into solving mode. If someone were to come in and say, uh, the client is upset, uh, if my first response is, oh, what about? Or, oh, is this a big problem? Or uh, all of those give me more specific details so we can solve this, then we're both in solving mode. But if I simply say, tell me more, then it's still open. Perhaps they just needed to vent and they already know the solution. They're like, I just wanted to tell you. We're fine. I'll handle it. Or I just need you to be ready in case this escalates. I just need to know that you have my back. So rather than assuming that the person came in for you to help solve something, allow that they may have come in for any number of reasons. So shifting to a different first response, be it, oh, tell me more, or what else? Those two can usually help expand the conversation so that you get a chance to know which hat to put on or which kind of thinking to use. Anybody want an experiment about how to delegate? Delegating?
Yes.
Okay. That's another script that I have to offer. It's a 3-question script. It's mostly from Brene Brown. So the 3 questions, whether you are delegating out, you anticipate and you answer these 3 questions. If something is being delegated to you and your first instinct is no, these 3 questions can help you navigate how to say no or what you could say yes to. So the 3 questions are, what does done look like? The second question is, what is our first check-in point? And the third question is, what can I deprioritize in order to focus on this? So the first question, what does done look like in the scenario where an executive has suddenly tapped you on the shoulder and said, I need the Q4 numbers for a board meeting on Friday. If that's all I get, I might be assuming that I need to follow a whole memo template from the last time, that it needs an executive summary, that it needs a full table of data. But if I ask, he might say, oh, I just need some bullet points. And that is a very different feeling. So to check my assumptions and to check what is he actually asking for. That second question around what is an interim check-in point allows for it to actually even be shorter. So it could be a period of time, it could be a step in the process. So in this example, he might say, oh, once you have an idea about whether Q4 is trending the same as Q3 or if it's going down or going up, let me know. Check in with me then, because if it's the same, then we'll just stop. In other situations, it could be, hey, after a day, check in with me, because it shouldn't take any more than a day. Or after a day, let's see how far we've got, and maybe we'll shift direction based on what you found at that point. The third question of what can I deprioritize in order to put my focus on this reminds the other person that you're not in a vacuum. You have other deadlines, probably you have some other priority until this one came up. So reminding them, hey, let's put this in context. And the answer might be, oh, this month we'll skip the monthly report. Oh, instead of 5 dailies, we'll only do 3 this week. Or they might say, oh, right, I forgot, you've got this whole big thing. You don't have to do this. I'll go ask somebody else. But it engages them in, let's check all the priorities. You can do this for yourself if you're adding something to your own to-do list. what is it that by adding this, you're not going to do. Another example was a client who we were already deep into construction, and they came and said, hey, we want to add a soccer field. And my whole body screamed no, but my voice did not. But I went through the questions. I'm like, okay, what does soccer field mean to you? I had assumed they were thinking like full regulation size, and they're like, oh no, we just want a place where the kids can kick a ball around. I'm like, okay, that's a little easier. What is the first check-in point? They're like, oh, well, when we get the actual grant for it, we can check back in again. And I said, well, when we get to a certain stage where we know if we have some contingency money, we can check in again. But they were confirming it doesn't have to exist the day we open the building. And then the prioritization question, they reaffirmed everything else was a higher priority. This was truly a wish list. Could we just keep working on a way that it could exist someday, but it wasn't to jeopardize their main project. At which point I was like, yeah, we can do that. Whereas my first reaction was absolutely not. Oh, Elizabeth, I'm glad that might help you. Can you help me come up with things to try as a senior member of a technical team? I'd like to be a manager one day. What I'm interpreting from that is that you're wearing the technical hat a lot. So what we would come up with is an experiment to try to wear one of the other three hats a little more often, so that you are seen by others as having those skills and potentially acknowledged as someone to move up, or you yourself are being able to advocate, saying that you have these skills and you can point to examples of using them. So maybe it is the visioning hat, where the experiment is, hey, every day this week I'm going to find one thing that I'm somehow connected with that has a relation to the strategic plan. And I might need to get creative into how something I'm doing today ties to the strategic plan. But if I do that every day for a week, then that muscle will start to get stronger and easier to use.
And we have about 13 minutes left, and I see Maren has a question that's a little bit more general, and so I wonder if we want to open up for more general questions now, if you feel like now's a good time.
Yeah.
Um, and I want to emphasize what Anne has been saying. If you'd prefer to ask your question live about any of the content that Anne has shared, please feel free to just come off mute, but we can start with Maren's question. Um, so the question, what can I deprioritize? I've gotten the response, make it work. How do you suggest addressing that?
I would first take a deep breath. That leader may not be a leader. That person may be a manager and may not have all the hats. And that is a truth that you're working with at the time. So you could pull two things from your back pocket. One is about strategic plan and one is about business. So the follow-up question to make it work, or even if you anticipate that rather than using deprioritize, it could be you could further ask for clarification on how this particular request ties to the strategic plan, or how this request helps you help the company make money or save money. So tying it to two executive level things can shift away from the words deprioritizing if those aren't effective. and show that you do have corporate interests in your intention and are asking that manager to also engage at a corporate interest level. Not saying that that will work if this person is limited in their leadership skills, but others around them may start to hear you speaking that way and start to support you in helping to make those priority choices. So again, it's around how can you tie it to a strategic initiative or a strategic plan that you know executive cares about, or tie it to the real basics of, hey, is this helping us make money or save money? And if it's neither, then there's a real question as to why it has to be done. That could be another experiment. If you've not really thought about how what you do helps a company make money or save money or both, you could choose for a week or 2 weeks that once a day you think, oh, there's something that I did today. Let me challenge myself to see, did that help us make money or save money or both? And is it even possible to put a rough order of magnitude on it? The first few times you do it, it may seem like you're really grasping and not even knowing order of magnitude. But by doing it for a week, and then maybe the next time you do it with a partner, and maybe the next time you do it with your boss, you do get more comfortable in being able to talk in those terms.
Great. Elizabeth is asking tips on how to manage a team in an online world.
Hmm. Another concept I use with clients I call the bat signal, which is tied to the skill that we are trying to nurture in our teammates to be able to say, oh, I think I'm struggling with capacity, or I think I'm struggling with time management. I feel like I'm about at risk to miss a deadline or miss a deliverable or miss a quality thing. Like, what is the bat signal to say, hey, I need some team members to rally around me, or I need something to shift. I need help. In everybody in the office world, typically the leader would have physical cues to see if someone is starting to tread water, or it might have been easier for someone to just pop their head in and say, hey, I think I could use some help. In a virtual world, those aren't available. So how do you get that? And it's by more explicitly talking about what are the bat signals that are possible. Is it that for someone it's, hey, I send text messages? Another teammate might say, hey, I'm going to send a Teams message and ask if you have a moment to chat. Someone else, it might be email. But if you talk about it and start to use it even like in dress rehearsals of, hey, I'm going to send bat signals today, or we're all going to send bat signals today, then when they're really needed, they can be used more smoothly. So the signaling is different now that we're virtual, but we just have to practice them so that when they're really needed, the team can act in a positive, supported way. I hope that made sense. I'm going to share slides one more time because I would like to do the emotional intelligence exercise again. So if we could all write down one emotion that you're having now, and a second emotion that you're having now, and one thing that resonated from this session. Maybe you don't know why it resonated. Maybe it's just bouncing around in your head. Maybe you circled it when you wrote it down. Maybe it's something about the four hats or the four kinds of thinking or the coffee chat script or the small experiments. Maybe it was something I said, something someone else said, something that you simply jotted down. As you get these three reflections for yourself, I would really appreciate it if you would put them in the chat as well. So, two emotions and what resonated. Oh, Sarah, I love that Shirley Hofstadter quote as well. She was amazing.
Anne, while folks are chiming in, I did get a question sent directly to me, so you didn't see it.
Ooh,
Um, I find that most in leadership positions in my world are managers, not leaders. How can I inspire or help create leadership in those above me? Love that question.
love that question too. This is a short, chippy answer. You could have them watch Ted Lasso. Um, uh, um, for the motivation hat, by being intentional in sharing what you are proud of, which is different from boasting, uh, but is in the world of, I was really proud of how that uh, free Q&A went, and that when we left, we felt that we were even closer to the client than we were when we entered the room. Those kinds of messages to people above can start to have them think about, well, what would I say I'm proud of, and be able to share back. And now you're getting that motivation hat activated more often. And you then might start to see more of the um, psychological safety behaviors happening, more of the team dynamic behaviors happening, more of the positive psychology happening. So by modeling it up, you may start seeing it modeled down.
I love that. We've got some empowered, motivated people in the chat too. Saying,
Yay!
great. And hungry. Someone's ready for lunch.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so what are some of our resonance? The quote, trying new things, keeping in mind that finding something just on the edge of your comfort zone and try it. Yeah, it's some of these experiments you can do entirely on your own. It's noticing self or noticing others and jotting a couple notes down and then seeing the patterns. That might that might be the edge of your comfort zone. Leadership is about creating space for possibility. Yeah. The tell me more. Gosh, that changed. My whole team noticed when I switched to tell me more. Trying something new for a week. Yeah. Trying something new can feel really daunting if you think you're going to do it for the rest of your life. But trying something new for a week seems accessible. I do acknowledge that I too wrote a book, and that I don't think leadership is knowledge, but books that encourage you to try things, those are great. Uh, my book does have some other experiments in it, so that would be another source of ideas. You can also find me on the Smith Network. You can definitely find me on LinkedIn. I have been writing a daily post about the Olympics, connecting curling skills to career skills. So you can check that out too.
Thanks, Anne. So everyone, we are at time. But I appreciate all of you joining us today, and I hope you'll join me in giving a virtual round of applause to Anne. And that you feel like you're leaving today just with some new tricks, experiments that you can run in your daily life. Anne mentioned the Smith Network. If you haven't logged in and connected with your fellow Smithies, please do so. I will be sharing a follow-up email with resources and I will include information about the network as well. But it's a great way to find people to keep in touch with. So thank you so much for joining us. You'll be hearing more from me. And I hope to see you again on more of our programs soon.